It's just a little thumbs up to let me know that you're actually seeing my screen there. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Okay, let's rock and roll. Um, for those that just joined us as well, I will introduce my offsider today, Mate the cattle dog. Mate hasn't been out for a walk at all today. He's been telling me that all morning, so he may sort of pipe up at some point. So I do apologise in advance if Mate starts to inject himself into the discussion. Um, look, thank you again for joining us. I know how hard it is to find time in very busy schedules, so I do appreciate it, and I do want to make sure that this is absolutely valuable to you. So um, we will get going. So I work as part of the Google News Initiative. GNI is basically Google's effort to build a stronger future for journalism. My role really focuses on the first of the three E's, which is to elevate and strengthen quality journalism. The other areas of focus for the GNI are evolving business models through programs like Subscribe with Google, and also empowering news organizations through technological innovation. That second bit is mainly achieved through the development of tools for journalists, and I'm going to take you through some of those today. And there are new things coming absolutely all the time. And as I mentioned, IO has thrown up some new developments for us, particularly within that workspace productivity set, which I will take you through in this session. Also, in order to keep help journalists, stay up to date with the latest tools for finding and telling stories, we do have this website, which is g.co/newstraining. It's a on-demand resource for you. You can learn at your own pace, and it has all of the various different elements to help you with all of your digital journalism needs. Everything from visualizing stories to verifying information, advanced search, mapping, it is all there. And it's a award-winning website, very, very good. I can highly recommend that. We also have this team as well, which is the team that I work with him. Nick Hopkins is the News Lab lead for Australia and New Zealand. Miguel D'Souza is our news fellow who is able to take you through those different tools that I just mentioned that are kind of available on the website. He can do sessions with you on those. We have Anna Freeland, who's the data fellow. She works within our global data team, helping newsrooms tell stories with data. And that chap on the end is obviously myself. And I'll just tell you a little bit more about me in a second. So, sorry, I just had a bit of a slide there. Okay. All right. Got to get these tech issues out of the way early. So fundamental tools for publishers is a complement to fundamental tools for journalists, which is been around for a few years now. This curriculum is designed to basically be the business and strategy companion to fundamentals, which is focused on editorial tools for newsrooms. And my role basically has a bit of a laser focus on local, regional, and small publishers in particular, which is where I've spent most of my time over the last 11 months. And the goal there is really just to help create more sustainable news businesses in local, regional, and in those small and niche publishers as well. So that's me. My role at Google is a 12-month fellowship with a very clear goal. I am sort of at 11 months now, so if you do have a job for me, please let me know. My role is to help local, regional, and small publishers, as I mentioned, in building stronger businesses, mainly through training and support. I got my first experience in journalism at my local newspaper, the Lithgow Mercury, age 15. And the first 2 years of my career were also spent working in local communities as a reporter. So I'm honestly absolutely, beside myself to be able to be helping in those areas at this particular time as well. Most recently, I led News Corp's shift to digital by building a national training program for newsrooms. I trained 1,000 journalists in social media, search, and mobile video. Also taught journalists and editors how to maximize readership and revenue. And I'm going to sort of pass a lot of that knowledge on today. Someone is knocking on the door there, so if someone could just let them in, that would be wonderful. I also launched social news startup Storeful in Australia. It was a first of its kind service providing publishers and brands, with social media to use in their storytelling. Previous to that, I was head of social media at the ABC, leading that business through a period of fairly dramatic change. And I'm also a lecturer here at UTS, teaching first-year journalists and also master's journalism at some points. Finally, I also have a cattle farm in country New South Wales, a 1.5-year-old daughter named Molly, my cattle dog mate, but please don't get me started on any of those things because we'll get nothing else done. Just before we go any further, there is a chat feature in Google Meet, as you'll see. Feel free to ask questions in there. I'll try to get to those as we move through, but if not, we will catch those through at some point during the presentation. I really want to make sure that we are answering any questions that you have. I've also built in a Ask Me Anything right at the end, which will have plenty of time for us to go through any sort of burning issues that you have. You'll also get access to this video recording. You'll get the full deck, which will have a transcript attached as well. So there'll be plenty of stuff for you to walk away with. So this session will cover local and global trends. So these are the factors that are affecting news in Australia. We're not going to cover New Zealand too much today, so I do apologise for that. But we will look at the global view of what's happening and various trends that are affecting news around the world. We'll also look at how to be audience first and the online measurement tools that underpin those audience first strategies. Next up, we'll look at a few of my favorite productivity tools. Some are from Google, some are not. This will basically allow you to create time in your day to do more of the really important things like strategy and planning, which is absolutely crucial as things move so quickly in media and tech, at an accelerating pace, it seems. So finally, we'll also look at how to market your content. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to kind of beat you over the brow with conversion rates and CPMs and top of the funnel and all of that jargon. It'll just basically be 5 things that you can do right now to drive success. Really, really simple. Before we get into the global trends, we will have a break at the top of the hour, just to stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, grab a cup of tea, just a few minutes break there. So don't feel like you have to strap in for the full 90 minutes. We will get the opportunity for you to have a small break at the top of the hour. So let's start with those macro trends that are affecting news in 2021. The Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism at Oxford University releases a global snapshot each year. They also do a special report for Australia. The bulk of this report is based on data collected by a survey of more than 80,000 people in 40 different markets. The surveys were taken just before the coronavirus hit in January/February for us here last year. Feels like both a minute and a decade ago. So in order to get a sense of what has changed, they repeated key parts of the survey in 6 countries in early April of last year. So let's have a bit of a look at what they found. So the coronavirus crisis substantially increased news consumption from mainstream media all across the board in all countries, both before, so sort of in the lead up to the pandemic, but also especially after it took effect. Television news and online sources saw massive upticks. More people noted television as their main source of news, which provided a temporary respite from a picture of steady decline for television over the last couple of years. Consumption of printed newspapers also fell as lockdowns around the world really undermined distribution. And that we saw has had an accelerating effect in terms of, I guess an all digital future for newspapers. I know it's a controversial thing to say, but look, when these aren't necessarily my words. All digital future is from the report, um, and look, that's sort of some of the stuff that we've started to see, newspapers being replaced by digital outlets and the like. But I have to say up front that there is absolutely a role for print, and I can go into that in the Ask Me Anything at the end, if you like. At the same time, the use of online and social media substantially increased in most countries. WhatsApp, saw the biggest growth, with an increase of around 10 percentage points in some countries. So 10% growth in WhatsApp use in most countries during this time. More than half of those surveyed, so it was around about 51%, used some kind of open or closed online group to connect, share information, or take part in a local support network. Look, we did this on our street here. I'm in the inner west of Sydney. Most of the time during the week, we created a closed Facebook group to share food in the early stages, and household items like loo paper, which was in short demand at the start of the crisis, and just to make sure everything was okay with everybody that's in the street. So we're seeing that sort of around the country, but those open and closed networks really accelerated during this pandemic. A Facebook group for subscribers is definitely something to think about as well if you are a news organization that is pursuing a subscription model. Here locally, New York Times has a Australia group for subscribers, which is just basically a back channel where you can talk to reporters, people creating the news about the stories of the day, and that's a really valuable on-sell for their subscriptions as well. So that's something to think about that directly relates to how you might take advantage of that big boost in what we're seeing in those closed groups. As of April 2020, trust in media's coverage of 2019 was relatively high in all countries. And it was at a similar level to national governments, and significantly higher than for individual politicians. Media trust was more than twice the level of social networks, video platforms, or messaging services when it came to information about COVID-19. So I'm just going to repeat that last one because I think it's really significant. Media trust was more than twice the level of trust in social networks, video platforms, or messaging services when it came to information about COVID-19. So from the larger data set, or the wider data set collected in January of last year, global concerns about misinformation remained high. And look, this was before the coronavirus even took place. There was massive concerns around misinformation. More than half of the global sample said that they were concerned about what was true or false on the internet when it came to news. So more than half of this global survey said that they were concerned about what was true or false on the internet when it came to news. Domestic politicians are the I always laugh at this point, I shouldn't, but domestic politicians are the single most frequently named source of misinformation through most of the countries surveyed, including the United States. And people who identified as either right-wing, the people that identified as right-wing were also more likely to blame the media for misinformation. Facebook was seen as the main channel for spreading false information almost everywhere, but WhatsApp was seen as being more responsible in parts of the global south, such as Brazil and Malaysia, according to this report from the Reuters Institute at Oxford. In the global poll across all countries, again, in January last year, less than 4 in 10, so 38% of people said that they trust most news most of the time. And that was a fall of 4 percentage points from 2019. Less than half, so this time 46%, said that they trust the news that they use themselves. And I find that one really interesting. Less than half of the people trust the news that they use themselves. What we also saw in this survey was a trend towards a lack of trust in public broadcasting. This trend is not seen here, where the ABC is still seen as our most trusted institution, and in fact had record engagement throughout the pandemic. It's important to kind of note that out. Also, despite this, the survey shows that the majority, so this is 60%, still prefer news that has no particular point of view, and that a minority, so sitting at 28%, prefer news that shares or reinforces their views. So that's an interesting one to kind of restate as well, because I again found that really interesting. So the survey shows that the majority, 60%, still prefer news that has no particular point of view, and that a minority sitting at 28% prefer news that shares or reinforces their views. Really interesting stuff. Now let's zoom in on the local setting, and I'm also just going to check at this point that we don't have any burning questions in the chat, and that you guys can still hear me okay. No burning questions. Everybody here, could I just get a hands up or a thumbs up or something? Thank you so much. Beautiful, guys. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Okay. That's my notes if I can find them. Excuse me. There we go. So all sorts of issues with tech today. I can't even tell you. I don't know how many of these things I do, but I seem to find a new issue each time. So thanks for that. Let's zoom in on the local setting and have a look at what's happening here in Oz. So look, in understanding the local landscape, there are really two crucial numbers to look at in order to set the scene. The first number is 25, which is 25 million, which is the number of people in Australia. 89 is the percentage of people that have access to the internet, which is a globally high figure. It's 89% of Australians have access to the internet, globally high figure, but it's also the opportunity, I think, for news publishers as well. So let's take a look now at how people are getting their news in Oz. The question here was, which, if any, of the following have you used in the last week as a source of news? TV news remains quite strong and steady, and continues to be a significant source of news, particularly over the dual crisis of COVID-19 and the Black Summer. Newspapers continue to fall, while social media has actually leveled off a little bit and is starting to stagnate as a source of news. It will be interesting to see what happens with these numbers when they do drop for the latter half of the end of last year, with already starting to see the spikes in social. So I think we will see a bit of a lift there, but certainly the trend has been down, or has been leveling off for social. Looking now at online, increasing numbers of Australians, are using their mobile phone to access news. No surprises there. Starting to widen the gap between mobiles and desk computer use as well. The smartphone audience is close to 60%, with a further 20% visiting from tablet computers as well. It's sort of worth asking yourself, if you are involved in a newsroom operation, if you're seeing this focus and energy in your newsrooms. So 60% of people coming from smartphones. Are we sort of thinking about that audience enough? And certainly, in my experience, often we sort of forget about them a little bit. But it is a massive audience for news. Now, getting back to trust, which I think is an absolute key thing for media right now, as we're sort of starting to see coming through in research like this, we do have to look at this year's findings through that lens of the bushfire crisis, which was ongoing when the survey was taken. But trust in news overall was 38%, and that was down 6%. Trust in the news that I use, which is the news that they personally use themselves, excuse me, dropped over the last 12 months to 46%. So 46% trust in the news that they use themselves. The number of people that said that they do not trust the news at all also rose during that period. And so that's up to 17% now. And that was largest amongst the area of the report, or the group of people within the report that relied mainly on traditional news like print, radio, and TV, compared to those that relied on online news, which is quite interesting in itself. In this graph, there's also a really wonderful story to be told about the trust that people have in local and regional news in particular, which is, you know, an area that I've focused quite a lot on in the last year. Local and regional news rank 4th overall for trust, and that's just behind the ABC, SBS, and the BBC. It's an amazing story there. I just wanted to talk about social media before showing you two more important numbers that I think you'll like. Facebook is the clear leader for news with 39%, up from 3% on the previous year. A whopping 71% of people surveyed said that they use Facebook. 71% of people surveyed said that they use Facebook. When you also factor in the Facebook-owned Instagram, also WhatsApp, which is Facebook-owned, Facebook Messenger is also on that graph there. All of them owned by Facebook. The opportunity is absolutely immense on Facebook. YouTube is often ignored, but it is growing and skews much younger than the likes of Facebook and even Instagram in terms of the demographic that you can reach on those platforms. When I was head of social media at the ABC, we clipped a 17-minute CCT video from Perth Transport. It showed a man being trapped between the platform and a train. It was a 17-minute video, publicly available. We clipped it up to 1 minute and posted it to YouTube. The video did 14 million views in 24 hours. As I mentioned, this was publicly available, access to everybody. Your strategy for YouTube doesn't necessarily need to be hard. This stuff can be quite simple. And that was a bit of a tectonic shift for the ABC. Previously, up until that point, we had a YouTube player, which was basically taking a live video feed from the website video player, had financial reports, weather, just all sorts of oddities, and led to us to take a bit of a curated approach to YouTube, stuff like that. So here are those numbers I mentioned. 14% is the willingness to pay for online news. This is from the Reuters report as it relates to Oz. There's another number as well, which is 28. That's the number of people who are willing to pay for local news. That figure rises to 59% if they paid for online content in the past. It's really interesting. So if they've bought say they bought a film on iTunes, they've got a subscription to Netflix or Stan or Binge or any of the streaming services. If they've bought online content in the past, through any of those means, their propensity to pay for local news rises to 59%. It's a really, really comforting figure, I think. So those last two numbers, I should point out, are from research from the News Media and Research Centre at the University of Canberra. It was published in the sort of middle of last year with the support of Google. That's the same team who partnered with Oxford University to deliver the digital news report, which I've been sort of taking you guys through So really, really great team, but I should just call out those final two numbers are local research, which I can share with you as well on email after this. So before I give you guys a bit of a break, I will shift gears slightly and take you through audience strategy and also online measurement. So look, analytics is a word that gets thrown around a lot. It's just really the process of turning data into insights you can act on is the way I like to think about it. So uh, it's just turning data into insights you can act on. I am going to walk through Google Analytics, partly because they've been helping me pay my bills for the last 11 months, but I also have a massive tendency towards showing you free tools, which there's no barrier to entry. You can get started straight away. And this is a free tool from Google that basically shows you how you can, shows you how users use your website. Is the simplest way to think about it. You may use another tool that's absolutely okay, but I am going to walk you through GA today. But look, the stuff that I will cover in the next little bit is applicable to whatever system you settle on. So wouldn't worry too much if you are using other analytics tools, and I do use other ones myself as well. I started my life in local newspapers, as I mentioned, my working life. And the way that I sort of always think about this is that, say you work at a local paper and you want to know how many people, visit your website. Google Analytics is going to allow you to sort of see the number of visitors to your online site, where they are coming from, which device they are using, and much more. So this is the typical view of the analytics dashboard. You can see your total sessions, how many pages per session, how many of these were new sessions, average session duration, a lot of sessions. You can also see the total number of users and page views. You can also see how many of these are new versus returning visitors to your website. New users are important, but I know from my time at News Corp that returning visitors are your most valuable. And I'll explain why in a second, but this is also playing out across the subscription labs that G&I is running across the world at the moment. Hopefully we'll get those here soon, but these labs are designed to help news companies that are pursuing a subscription model be more successful. And we are starting to see those, and we're certainly seeing those numbers bear out across the globe as well, that new users are important, but returning users are your most valuable. And the reason why is that they stay on average longer on your website. They're also more likely to engage with other products and services that you have. So say, for instance, that you have, you might have a classified business or something associated with it. They're more likely to engage with that or other websites that you might have. It's also, in my experience at News, it's cheaper to engage existing users than it is to attract a new user. New users are more expensive to acquire than it is to actually retain existing users. So worth bearing that in mind as well. I did want to spend just a second talking about the very demonized bounce rate. It's certainly worth clarifying. It's the percentage of single session visits. So this could flag a few things. It might mean that they were able to find what they needed right away, which is a good thing. So be careful how you interpret that. So bounce rate is just someone coming to a website, your website, looking at one page and then sort of bouncing back out, not doing anything else, not clicking on a video or going through the website to another page. They're just in and out. I will also provide a summary of all of those different terms. We rattled through about 50 different terms in a very short period of time. So I will send through a glossary of all of those terms. So don't worry too much if your mind is swimming at this point. This is Peter, or Two Beard, as I like to call him, the weirdest avatar that I could find in the graphics library at Google. So Google Analytics can tell you really specific things about your users. So as I mentioned, this is Peter, but you won't know his name, but you can tell what device he used to access your website. You can see what Peter clicked on to come to your website. For example, Peter came from Facebook. Um, as I mentioned, analytics won't give you personally identifiable information. You can't learn specifically who is coming to your website, but you can get aggregated and anomalized information like demographics, age, location, all of that sort of stuff is available to you. One example of how we used this at the ABC was in prioritizing the rollout of mobile optimized pages. This wasn't that long ago, but we didn't have websites that displayed in a good way on mobile. They were all basically built for desktop. And so we're just trying to work out, like, how do we do this across a business that is so large? How do we roll out this technology change? So we had a look at our analytics. We saw that around 30% of visits to the news page were from mobile devices. So we decided to really prioritize that audience, which was the largest. So let's serve the biggest audience first and work back from that. So that really allowed us to roll out that change to a really patient and persistent audience right away. Also allowed us to really simplify our work scheduling. So analytics really can deliver all sorts of different insights to you that you can apply in a variety of different creative ways. So GA also gives you real-time information on when users are visiting your site. You could look at things like time of day, days of the week, seasonality like Anzac Day, public holidays, Christmas Day. Still sort of thinking creatively, you could use data on Christmas Day, for example, to decide what rostering is required. If you have no traffic after 2 p.m., historically, looking back, at last year's data, you might consider letting your web editor go home at 2 o'clock to enjoy a late lunch with their family. Look, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the tool because you can really understand when your audience is consuming your content across the day. So this kind of data can be used to make changes to rostering as to when staff start. Also, when you roll over various parts of the website, maybe when and how you promote stories, all of this sort of stuff can be planned using the insights that you can get on just this particular data set. For example, if your audience rushes to the website first thing in the morning, a midnight sort of rollover of yesterday's news is just not going to cut it. So you might start a senior journalist and the first shift of the web team at 5 a.m. So that it's fresh and up to date for that 6 a.m. lift in traffic. And this is a real world example. This is a trial that we did, or a pilot that we ran at News Corp. It's fair to say it wasn't super popular with the senior journalist in particular, the chief of staff that had to start at 5 a.m. Sorry, 6 a.m. instead of 9:30 when they normally rocked in. So what we did there was we started the web team at 5 a.m. The most senior journalist in the morning shift started, the chief of staff started at around 6 a.m. Bring everything forward 3.5 hours. It had a massive impact on traffic straight away, as you can imagine. So we had senior leadership in the room that can make decisions. All of the calls that normally happen at 9:30 or 10 o'clock are starting early. So we're getting all of the latest information. Everything's fresh. And to our surprise as well, we weren't necessarily doing this change for that reason, but it gave a massive kick to the quality of the print product as well, because we were just literally hours ahead of ourselves in terms of preparing the news for the paper as well. So, analytics can be used to do that sort of stuff. But I guess, look, the most common way to use this stuff is really in terms of just meeting your audience where they are. So when they're online. So if you do have massive spikes in the evening between 6 and 9, which is very common, or in the early hours of the morning between, say, 6 and 10, it just allows you to really plan for that. And you can also see where they're coming from. So if most people are accessing, social media early in the morning to get their news from you, that starts to play into your strategy as well. So really, really powerful information at your fingertips with this particular set. You can also find out where in the world that they're coming from. Last year, Google funded a local news pilot across 5 different locations, tackling 5 unique issues. It was led by Simon Correa and Megan Brownlow. Many of you will know Simon from his work at BuzzFeed. He was the founding editor of BuzzFeed Oz and later the general manager, looking after both the business and editorial sides. And Megan Brownlow was previously at PricewaterhouseCoopers and is just somewhat of a media seer here in Australia. Absolutely world class in like media trends and that sort of stuff. So the project was called Project Kookaburra. You can Google that to learn a little bit more. I'll also send through a link to Project Kookaburra when I send through the resources as well, so you don't have to dig around for it. Look, one publication in particular that used this kind of geographic info was the Fassifern Guardian, which is a family-owned newspaper in Queensland's Scenic Rim. A neighbouring town lost their local newspaper when a large newspaper group stopped publishing in that area. They thought there might be an opportunity to kind of expand their business geographically and start to cater to that audience that has sort of stopped receiving the news about their area. So what we did is we put GA on their website. I'm going to show you how to do that today as well in a really easy way. So basically, they're just looking for a lead on the feasibility of that move. And they found by looking at GA that people from the town were already reading them, which gave them basically a fair bit of confidence to relaunch or to launch, in that town. So they're now the Fassifern Guardian and Tribune, or the G&T as they call themselves. They're going from absolute strength to strength. They've got a journalist in this town that's covering them, dedicated to them. So they've been able to expand. I was talking to the editor, Drew Crichton, a couple of weeks ago. They're looking at putting more people on, so it's going really, really well for them. Another publication in that pilot was Footy South, which is a print magazine gone digital in Tasmania. They found that they had a dedicated audience in all corners of the globe. We're thinking that these are likely expats or tourists or people doing business in the state, but they're all spread around the globe, which was really, really interesting for them. So they're now absolutely awash with ideas about what to do with this new audience segment that they didn't even know they had. So some of the stuff that they're starting to think about is like, what are the information needs of this audience segment? Are they, is it a newsletter that we send out on a Saturday morning that tells them all of the different developments that have happened in Tasmania during that week? Is it publishing on social media at the times that they're awake? So big audience in the US, big audience in the UK. Should we be scheduling posts to go out on social during those times to engage those readers that are in different geographic areas? GA also allows you to answer these kinds of questions. So it's, like, what do they click on? Where do they come from? Facebook, where in the world? What are they doing when they arrive? Which is obviously key information as well. How long are they staying? Also, where do they go next? Which is something that we often don't think that we'd be able to know, but where do they go next is also something that you can learn. So this helps us to figure out basically what they're doing on your website. These are some of the kind of more niche or more detailed insights that you can learn up on the screen right now. Which article thumbnails generate the most clicks? What style of imagery resonates best with different demographics? Which headlines increase your click-through rate? All of this stuff you can learn by looking at the dashboard. So when I first started at Google, I sent an email to the product team and just said, look, I'll be developing all of these different training resources to talk to journalists and newsroom leaders and people working in the media about analytics and how they can use it. So, how would you describe what they can learn and how they can, how they can use GA? And this is what I got back. This organization has succeeded in targeting me as an archetypal visitor to their website. So look, translated, this is what that means. It just means that these people understand me. And that's all we're aiming for, I think, with Google Analytics, is to really just get there. So these people understand me. Now, I just wanted to touch on something that I kind of missed a little bit from the audience strategy side of things. And I am going to sort of walk through this this very quick explanation of the difference between data and insights as well. But the way that I think about audience strategy is I try and simplify it as much as possible. When I was at Sorrowful, as I mentioned, it's a social media newswire, kind of the Reuters of the social media age. We're verifying content for news organizations, but we also have a branded content business that's using cat videos in Coca-Cola ads. So very unique business. I had one staff member locally, which was me, and no real plan, it's fair to say. I kind of sent an email to the founder of Sorrowful and said, hey, I'd like to bring it down under. They foolishly agreed. So there I was. And I just really needed something to kind of anchor me in the first couple of weeks that we were rolling this, building this business locally. And this kind of really came to developing what is just almost a one data point audience strategy, which is I just focused on building the users. So I just said to myself, look, if I double the amount of users in the first 90 days, let's just kind of aim high, that it will sort of just be a springboard to growth for all parts of our business. So it will lead to more revenue, it will lead to greater engagement with the platform and a better relationship with us as a business, and successful flow from there. And fortunately for me, it did. So we did double the amount of users in the first 90 days. So this is journalists using the platform. This led to us posting $1 million worth of revenue in our first year. And I was able to hire a team of 10 people within that period. So I just set one metric, and it's worth just sort of thinking about that for whatever you're doing right now, whether it's you're here because you want to drive engagement with your brand you as a journalist on social media. Maybe you're thinking about launching a newsletter. Maybe it's about driving subscriptions. What is that one metric amongst all of those other things that's going to be really the thing that's going to lift everything else and just allow you to really focus your mind on that? So hopefully that works for you. That's certainly the way that I start to think about audience-led strategy and general strategy for whatever I might be doing. I try to keep it as simple as possible. So back to simplicity, I did want to explain the difference between data and insights, because this is something, honestly, that I struggled a little bit with at the start when I had roles that were really quite focused around data. So I just look at data this way. Data is a bit of new information. So new information, and insights are basically how you can act on those. And we did touch on that at the start, but I did want to kind of reinforce that. So data is a useful bit of new information, and insights are how you can act on them. And honestly, I don't think people think enough about this stuff. And if you can master how to read the data and apply what you've learned, you can absolutely fly in basically anything you do. It's really, really crucial. Now, we've spent a bit of time looking at GA. I did want to show you a number of tools from Google that make the job of finding key insights so much easier. I'm going to go back to the chat for a second because it might be, we are 5 minutes from the hour. Do you guys want to take a little break now? Stretch your legs? We might even just have a show of hands. Do you want to just smash on through? All right, cool. Well, look, silence is probably agreement. Happy either way. Thank you. Keep going. Okay, vote. We need a deal breaker. We need a tiebreaker. Does anybody else have a preference of taking a break or going on through? Happy to keep going. All right, cool. Let's keep going. Just a reminder that you will have access to all of this. Thank you, Kay. All of this information at the end as well. So if you do need to go to the bathroom or let the cat out or do something like that, feel free to do that because you will get access to this after the call. All right, let's, in the words of Kay, let's rock on. Again, my notes have disappeared, which is super unhelpful for me personally. There they are. I have spent a little bit of time looking at GA, but now I do want to take you through a number of tools that really make that process of finding those insights within the data so much simpler. I really do wish that these tools were around 10 years ago when I first started looking at this stuff, because honestly, they're just absolute game changers in terms of being able to organize the information so that you can see the stuff that you really need to know, and that is how you can act on it. So here we are. So Google has created these free news industry tools to basically help you make better data-driven decisions, both on the editorial side, but also on the business side. So it does look, these tools, do look at revenue and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. So goo.gle/data tools is the website to check them out. They've got terrible names. News Consumer Insights is one. The other is Real-Time Content Insights. Those two tools, have been quiet heroes in newsrooms for a little while now. They've been released in the last, say, 6 months with a bit of a refresh and also a new resource, which is called the News Tagging Guide. I'm going to take you through all three of them, but News Tagging Guide is the new one, and it's a welcome addition, certainly from my perspective. So look, just defining those for you very quickly. Consumer Insights gives you recommendations on how to grow reader engagement and revenue, and also helps you understand how your content is performing in real time. So that's really important as well. Real-time Content Insights looks at all of the other stuff. So you've got News Consumer Insights, which is really looking at how content is performing on your platforms. And you've got Real-Time Content Insights, which is the rest of the world. So basically, what are the stories that are trending on the web? And the really cool thing about that is they have a newsroom view, which basically is a visualization that puts all of those stories that you may be missing up on a screen. So my recommendation would be to have that tab open on a screen, on your laptop or on your desktop, wherever you are, some display dedicated to that as basically an early warning system for news, but also just as a bit of a sense check. Like, are we covering everything that we need to cover here? Is there an opportunity potentially with stories that people are engaging with and looking for that we're not doing? So really, really powerful. So it gives you everything, stuff that's working for you and also the stuff that's working for everybody else. Really, really powerful. The new addition is the news tagging guy. It's basically a bit of a diagnostic tool. So it allows you to identify metrics that you may not be tracking. So it basically allows you to do a bit of a run across the website and say, hey, maybe we need to add a tag that allows us to track video views, or maybe there's a better tag out there that than the one that you're currently using. It is that tool. It is that diagnostic tool that allows you to run a quick check across the website. I'm going to take you in and have a little look at it. So I won't tell you too much more about it, but it is a bit of a game changer. I do recommend that you play around with them all because they are designed to work together. But I did, as I mentioned, want to take you through and show you what they do look like. So Consumer Insights has this built-in decision engine, which you can see on the screen now, that basically focuses on how to grow reader engagement, but also how to grow revenue, which is really important for many organizations. It does also show you how to capture better data generally. So it is going to give you those recommendations around what you should be capturing. Really, really, really powerful. It's also, I just realized I was saying powerful a lot, but genuinely is. It's also a great first step into audience segmentation. If that's something that you want to do, something you've heard people talk about, you're like, how do I even get started with audience segmentation? Which, to be honest, a lot of newsrooms are in this position, so it's not just you. A lot of people are getting to this point now. So it allows you to basically, or it does it all for you. It breaks up your audience into 3 different segments for you. So those that are really, really engaged, which are your brand lovers, also your casual readers or your loyal following, and then onto your casual readers. So those that you've got very clear segments of your audience. Now, why that's important? Well, those brand lovers, they're your advocates. They're the guys that are coming back to you more than anybody else. If you haven't launched a subscription service yet, these are the people that are more likely to subscribe. So they are your kind of your rusted on, for want of a better word, users. The other guys are kind of a bit further. I said I wouldn't say funnel, but here I am, a bit further down the funnel. So they are coming to you not as much as your brand lovers, but they are certainly very engaged with what you do. So you want to kind of move them into a category where they're in that green box, where they're your brand lovers. They are coming to you more and more, and then you've got the fickle few that are just sort of bouncing in, and you certainly want to try and engage them more. So it does give you a very easy way to kind of get into audience segmentation if that's something that you haven't done yet. You do have to have a GA account to access these because it is reading Google Analytics data. So you do have to have a GA account in order to access this. But honestly, it's pretty simple to set up, and you just log in using your GA account to access News Consumer Insights, real-time content insights, and also the tagging guide, which is the new bit. I am going to show you now just a quick look at the news tagging guide because it is a bit of a game changer. So one of the things that I certainly heard a lot when I was working in newsrooms was like, I just don't, like, where do I even find the tags? I wouldn't even know where to find the tags to put into the website. So news tagging guide gives you those tags. It does. It does require a little bit of technical knowledge. I wouldn't say that, that it's kind of like a dummy's guide to tagging. It does require a little bit of technical knowledge, but I'm certainly no developer, and I don't find any issues using it. So get in there, have a crack. I had somebody that was actually in sports marketing on this call last week. They said that they'd never used GA before. They created an account, and it took them about 60 minutes to kind of get their head around everything, set up reports, all of that sort of stuff. So it can be, it's a good investment if it does take 60 minutes to get all of your reporting set up. Now, this is normally where we do have that let the cat out break, but as you guys have, already indicated, you're quite happy to push on, so we will push on. We've got 30 minutes left, and I do want to leave 10 minutes at the end for you guys to ask anything you like. We do have some great people on the call, as you've mentioned, so as you've seen at the start. So, there's some great knowledge in this call. So I do want to get to that because I think that's really important. So it might be a really good point now to just write down any questions that you have, whether they relate to stuff that we've covered over the last hour. Doesn't matter. We're going to tackle them at the end. So, pop down any questions that you have right now, and we'll get to those at the end. So now we're going to get into a number of productivity tools that I use every day, and the reason we do this is because we want to be able to create more time in your day for other things, like whether it's in-depth stories or I might say that, slurring my words now as we move through the lunch break, in-depth stories or strategy or whatever the case might be, looking at a new platform or thinking through a new idea. We want to create as much time in the day for you to focus on those sorts of things. So that's why this productivity toolkit has been put together. Some of these are Google tools. Some of them aren't. These are just my absolute favorites. I've focused on free tools, as I mentioned at the top. The reason for that being, I don't want any barriers for you to get involved in this stuff. So they're free tools. Some of them do have a freemium version for some added extras, but to be honest, the basic free versions will get you out of trouble. And that's what I'm going to really speak to over the next little bit. So look, let's get started with the ironically titled Slack. So we use Slack in our newsroom at Storeful. I liked it so much, we now use it to run our household here. You can imagine how much fun I am to live with. You can create channels to bring people together around a particular topic, like general newsroom or features or sport. If you're an editor, you can dip into each section to see what's happening in real time. The really great thing about Slack is it also provides, a knowledge base. So it allows you to bring people up to speed really quickly on all of the conversations that have happened before. So you literally add somebody to a channel. You have the option of allowing them to see everything, or the option of perhaps just starting them new. But if you do allow them to see everything that's happened before, they can skim through, they can see all of the different people that have been involved in the project or the vertical, or however you break it down. They can see, if you link it to Google Drive, they can see all of the documents, all of that sort of stuff is in there. So it becomes a really vital knowledge base as well. Now, this is crucial, as I say in the third point there on the slide, for when people join your business or team, but also when you need to remove people from your business or team. So it's just kind of like a really secure way of operating. Speaking of Workspace, let's talk a little bit about a suite of tools that's just had a bit of a rebrand. For some reason, my video, damn it, has not loaded. Let me just see if I can just pull that up for you guys, because I think it is worth going through. But look, I'll just very quickly introduce you to this. So Google Workspace was formerly known as G Suite. It's the business version of Google's free suite. It gives you just a little bit more. And look, it integrates really, really well with Slack, and this is what we used at Storeful. We also use this at home. As I mentioned, a fun guy to hang around. From sharing budgets to working on draft proposals for the farm business. as I mentioned, we also use this at Storeful and at News Corp. Basically, look, the global newsroom at Storeful was run on these tools and Slack at little to no cost to us. It was a startup, and I think that startup mentality um, really stuck with the company. We would use Google Meet calls to run a 24-hour, then called Hangouts, but Google Meet calls to run a 24-hour news conference. We were all, wherever we were, logged on to the Google Meet so that we could talk to each other. We would have news lists that were run through Google Docs. We would be collaborating on stories using Slack, communicating via Slack. It was just all really, really seamless. Now, the change that happened at I/O yesterday, which is the developer conference, is honestly a major update. And I do want to pull that video up for you because I think it will show you what the change means in a way that I just wouldn't be able to describe. It's called Smart Canvas. It's a new product experience for Workspace, which basically aims to make collaborating more flexible and interactive. Smart Canvas, it's not a new product so much as a kind of a realignment or more of a wide-ranging update, sorry, to Workspace that more tightly integrates those different remote working apps of email or Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Tasks, and also Google Meet. It basically brings them all together. Look, I'm going to just pull that video up because I just really think that that is such a powerful way of describing it. And actually, you guys can see it. So my apologies, my view, you could not. So here we go. There you go, a bit of a musical interlude as well. So hopefully you could see that video. Look, it really is quite a tectonic shift. And I've read all of the article responses to this overnight. And I think the feedback on this has been really super positive. And look, I'm going to take you through a bunch of different, different tools now that I think, being honest, if this change was around back when I started doing this stuff, almost 10 years ago now, I'd probably just use Google Workspace for the reason that it brings all of that stuff together now. But look, there are a bunch of other options out there. These are the things that I use daily. Yeah, look, in terms of what this might mean for you in a newsroom is, as you've seen in that video, you can basically assign tasks. You can link to different documents or budgets within a document. You can start a video hangout within a document. Like it just brings all of those things together, which is just a huge win for productivity. This is something that I do a lot of as well. Like often I get asked about video. That's one of the things that people tend to talk to me about in the free consulting sessions that I have for publishers. And I will send you a link so you can book some time with me if you like. Video is often a bit of a problem for many publishers, particularly small publishers. They don't have the resources to create video. So what I often tell them is if you're doing interviews, just use Google Meet. It's more personable, it's more personal. And you can also just hit record and it immediately creates a piece of content for you. So you could upload that video with a local politician about a major grant for roads in the area, and raw version to the website, raw version to social media, or you might clip it up into something as well. But it's just a really easy way of creating some video as well. So just a quick tip from me on content, because I do get asked that a lot. Record video interviews, because it does make it easy to create content for social and online. Tell you what, we didn't want the video, and now it won't go away. There we go. Okay, what's going to happen now? I'm going to mute that. Like I said, you know what? Every time there's something different, and an interesting technical problem. Kate, let's go to you while I work myself out here. You have a question.
We can't see your screen, Neil.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right. Presenting again now. Can I just check you guys did see that video that I showed? I just have a Kathy.
No, I didn't see it.
Oh no! All right. Look, let me just play that for you. I do apologize. I'm having all sorts of technical issues today, which is wonderful. But look, let me just play that for you now, just because I do really want to walk you guys through that, because it is just a great representation of what this change actually means in practice. So I'll just play that now. All right. Did we see that, Kathy? Can you be the sense check on this?
Yes, it played fine for me.
Awesome. Look, I'm just going to stop presenting for a second, because I just want to reload my deck, because it is causing me a few problems. So I'm just going to reload this deck. So please just bear with me. Look, a great point. We've got about 15 minutes left, so it is a good point to take some questions if you guys have any questions, particularly around that change that we just saw there. Are there any questions about that, or anything else we've covered so far? Feel free to just jump in if you do have a question. I will take that as a very good sign that we've done well, and that we've answered the questions that you need. Look, I'm just going to present again. I do apologize for that. I think this will hopefully solve those little bugs that we're starting to see, which are just driving everybody crazy. Kathy, I'm going to ask you again. Could you just tell me that you can see what's on your screen there? It should say Workflowy.
Yeah, got it.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you, guys. This is obviously a terrible display of the power of Google's tools, given that I've just mucked it all up. But I think it's more to do with the internet that I've got here at the moment, which is causing me a few issues. I did touch on Google Tasks, which is basically a task manager that is now built into Google Workspace. So it used to sit as a standalone tool, but now is kind of linked in with that. When I was head of social media at the ABC, I had this goal of getting to inbox zero by 6 p.m. every night. That was always my goal every day. Very committed to it. I wouldn't leave before I got there. And I just found that I would have 70 new emails, like quite literally 70 new emails by 11 a.m. the next day. Now, this is 8 years ago. I imagine the volume is a lot higher now. All of these things were not just FYIs, these were tasks. These were things that people needed from me. And I just really needed a system to be able to manage the inflow of things that I needed to do for people. So that's when I came across this tool called Workflowy. It's basically a task manager. And I use it to capture all of the tasks that take longer than 2 minutes to get done. Anything that takes longer than 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes to get done, I just do straight away. So anything less than 2 minutes, I do it, like rebooting the presentation. Anything over 2 minutes, I basically pop on this list. Now, look, honestly, this has absolutely revolutionized the way that I work, and I never forget to do something because Workflowy remembers for me. You can also use hashtags as filters inside Workflowy. I have a today hashtag, which is anything that needs to be done today. I have a soon hashtag, which is anything that needs to be done over the next 3 days. And I have a later hashtag, which is anything that needs to be done in the next few weeks. I also have an anytime hashtag, which is basically like paint the fence, anything that polish my shoes, like anything that, it's not going to be the end of the world if that thing doesn't get done. I also use filters to filter by people. So my boss is Nick Hopkins. I have a Nick hashtag. And I basically jump into a meeting with him and I just hit the hashtag and I have a list of all of the things that I need to do for him so that I can give him an update on where I'm at with that stuff. It's on desktop, it's on mobile, it syncs across both. As I mentioned, it's also free. So that is an amazing option for you. Okay, so the next one up is Canva, and this solves a big problem for many small newsrooms or people within digital teams because it basically provides a powerful design tool for newsrooms. It's an Australian startup. It's one of the most successful startups ever. The recent valuation for Canva was like $6 billion. That's absolutely killing it. But the reason is that it just solves a massive problem. So it can be used to create and publish social media content. It's made for each platform. So it's got these easy to use templates that are built for the size. So Instagram, they make it hard. Instagram has a different size, obviously, for its grid view than it does for its stories. Facebook posts, optimal size is different. Again, Twitter posts, different again. Also has templates for email. You can edit videos in there now. You can also create presentations like this one that are really beautiful and do a job. It's really, really good. You can also upload your brand kits if you're working within organization. It's really important that you have the right colors and you have the right logos. You can do all of that. And look, I've used it for so many different design tasks, everything from creating the platform-specific imagery to promote this session. I used it to create some washable labels for jam jars for the farm. I've used it to create the resume that I got this job with. I've used it for a variety of different tasks, and it's really, really, really good. You can trial it for free now. It's a low-cost solution that basically allows you to compete with the big guns in terms of quality. They've also started to really target newsrooms as well because they do see the benefit of using it in newsrooms. So if you search on Google with Canva for newsrooms, you'll be able to find a specific page that targets you. Now, just to make sure that we do leave a little bit of time at the end, so we've got about 7 minutes left. I'm just going to rattle through five tips for basically marketing yourself and your journalism, because there's no point in creating amazing content if no one's consuming it. So I'm going to take you through just five tips, things that I've learned in order to sort of market your content and also to market yourself. Now, this kind of applies mainly to newsrooms, so I have thought about it a bit more from that perspective. But honestly, this stuff, is certainly something that you could apply as an individual as well. But one of the key things that I've seen that's been really transformative in terms of audience engagement is just making data somebody's responsibility. As we've discussed, understanding your audience is absolutely key to your success. So making somebody in your team responsible for audience data and having them report back on what's working and what's not at a daily level, like at a daily cadence, is absolutely crucial. So making someone responsible for audience data and making sure that they're reporting back to you on the daily. And the reason for that being, then we start to, we talk a lot about the journalist's gut. Journalist's gut is really just built on data. So we've just understood over time the sorts of stuff that have worked. We know crime stories work. We know that quirky stories work. We know that stories that feel personal work. This is just really allowing the newsroom to build that gut and basing it on something solid that's real time, close to real time, up to date. This is what your audience is doing right now. And it also gives you really strong leads for what you might follow up on. So if you had a story yesterday, it was a bit of a surprise. It did really well. How do we do that again? Is there a follow on that story? Is there another way of extending that success? So really key that you make audience somebody's responsibility. Start a newsletter. Everybody's saying start a podcast at the moment. You can start a podcast. I'm certainly not against podcasts. Love podcasts. But look, Australia is leading the way with open rates globally, which is a really strong indicator of a really deeply interested audience on email. So according to Campaign Monitor, Australia leads open rates globally, and the average is like 18.7%. It's really, really high. So 18.7% of people are opening emails, which is really, really high. So really strong indicator of interest in email. And look, I personally love email. I would say that working at Google, but I do love email. To me, it's just it feels a bit more personal. I don't know why that is, but I am a big fan of email. The third one, again, sort of more relatable for somebody that is in maybe an executive role or is certainly in a leadership role within a newsroom, is to invite your ad executives to your editorial conference. A couple of years ago, not that long ago, we tried to create a real church and state division inside newsrooms. This is editorial, this is ads or whatever you want to call it, sales, and never the two should meet. The most successful newsrooms I've seen are ones where there is knowledge about what is happening on the money side of the business. And why this is important is because it helps the ad team better understand what they're selling, which is your journalism. It also helps the newsroom understand what they do so that they can better support them. And you just want that bridge to be tight because we want to create really sustainable businesses. And my advice on getting them into the editorial conference, just ask them to tell you what campaigns they're working on. What if any help they need. So if they have sold a big campaign on the travel section of your website, what do they need? It might be just keeping that fresh and up to date. Maybe it's a couple of ideas for stories. Maybe it's to get someone in a bit of spare time to be making sure that looks absolutely Mickey Mouse. So advice is to get your ad executives to join your editorial conference. fourth one is to deliver a high quality product in print and digital. And, you know, this is the bit where I pull the soapbox out and I start to talk a little bit about the importance of print still. Print is still a vital source of audience and income. So if you have a print product, it is your natural audience for your digital product, and there has to be a play there in order to get them to slowly transition, right? But still a vital source of audience, and it's also a vital source of income. So you just really need to make sure that you are still focusing on the print product. It can help you build a deeply engaged digital audience once that offering's up and running. Offering a bundle subscription that provides digital access with a print subscription is just a very good way of building that digital audience if you're in the process of starting to transition or starting to launch a digital product that sits alongside your print product. So don't undervalue either. If you've got print and you've got digital, you need to be committed to delivering high quality in both areas. Create a social media plan is the final tip before I open up to questions, and we probably will run a little bit over time. But look, I'm absolutely here for you, so I'm going to stick around. But if you do need to jump, feel free to. Many businesses see social media delivering somewhere between sort of like 20 and 40% of audience coming from social. That is big. And look, it doesn't need to be complicated. I'm a huge fan of creating a one-page strategy that shows, firstly, the goals. So maybe it's driving subscriptions or driving traffic. Just the platforms. So Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, that's what we're going to focus on. Frequency of posts. So let's just say 4 times a day and twice on weekends. Who is the owner of the strategy? So who is responsible for posting and reporting daily on what's happening on social? And the reason we have that owner there is it's not to put them on the hook if anything goes wrong. It's just to have somebody responsible. And it's worth saying that my general philosophy is that everybody is responsible for success, regardless of what your role is. I take a very team approach to all of that sort of stuff, but somebody ultimately has to be the person that you talk to when we're the person whose focus it is for any particular part of a broad strategy. So who is the owner? Who's responsible for posting and reporting daily with audience updates? Okay, so we are at the point where I'll take absolutely, be gentle, but I'll take any question you have. Feel free to ask it now. Does anybody have any questions before I release you back into the wild? One question might be, Neil works at Google. How come we can't use Google products? It's a relevant one. Why hasn't mate gone out for a walk today? No questions. Okay, great. Beautiful. All right, guys. I am going to quickly flash up my details so that you can get in touch with me. Here they are. So email neilvarcoe@google.com. I'm at Neil Wrights on all social media channels. Just a reminder that there is that website that provides training on demand. So g.co/newstraining for all of your training needs. Do get in touch with me if you want a private session. I have a little over 2 weeks left in my fellowship, but as I mentioned, there are other people inside the team here that can deliver training to you as well. So do get in touch if we can help. That's absolutely it from me. Thank you so much for your time. I do know how difficult it is to find time in your day for this sort of stuff. So I really I do appreciate it, and I really hope that was of value to you. I will send you an email after this with all of that stuff, but you're free to go. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Neil.